Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by RFA Middleweight Kevin Casey. Kevin, how are you?
I'm excellent, Mike. Thank you for having me on the show.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for doing it. Kevin, you got a fight coming up January 24th at RFA 12. Before we get to that fight, let's talk about The Ultimate Fighter, because I know it happened a while back, but I wanted to talk to you about it because before your last fight, I wanted to get you on here, but scheduling and stuff like that prevented us from connecting, so I wasn't able to get you on. But since I have you on now, obviously things didn't end the way you were hoping for. Obviously, you were hoping that you were going to win the six-figure contract and become the next Ultimate Fighter. But overall, how was the experience?
The experience was great. You know, to be a part of a big season, having John Jones and Chael Sonnen be the coaches and to have them change the whole format of the show, it was an excellent experience. The only thing that I could do was stay positive even when things didn't go my way, and just, you know, make the most of the relationships that I built there and the camaraderie that we had amongst our team, and just support the guys who were still active in the tournament. And also the knowledge that was there, having the great coaching staff with Coach Clayton Hires and Jamie Huey and Coach Scott, and just an unbelievable group of guys who were there to support us in what we were going through.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, talk about the roller coaster of emotions you were going through, because you got to fight twice when you were in the house. You fought once against Colin Hart and lost that fight, but then you were given a second chance. You fought in the wild card against Bubba McDaniels. Can you talk me through how you were able to deal with it? Because after the Colin Hart fight, your attitude was probably like, well, I'm going to keep working hard and try to get that wild card spot. And then after the Bubba McDaniel fight, when you were eliminated basically for good, talk me through the emotions and talk me through how you were mentally going, all these highs and lows, being eliminated but then given a second chance, and then talk me through it.
Well, just starting off on my fight getting into the house, I got cut.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I believe it was in the first round.
Right.
And so I went into the tournament already a little bit wounded, and we already started a vigorous pace as far as our training that following day. So I already was in a position where I went in feeling a little bit wounded amongst all the animals, but I was still positive. I still felt good about moving forward, and I thought that I may have fought a little bit too soon in facing Colin Hart. My body I really wasn't feeling in peak condition, and I honestly felt like I really wasn't ready to go, but Coach Sonnen made the decision to put me in, and so I just did my best. But I felt flat in the fight. I felt that I wasn't there, and also looking back, I was dealing with a situation medically because I wasn't hydrated properly. So going into the third fight, where I fought Bubba McDaniels, I knew that something was clearly wrong, because as I did the weight cut process, I could feel the kidneys in the back just in a lot of pain. So by the time I got to the second round of the fight, I knew that it wouldn't be a smart decision to continue, because I knew what potentially was going on with my body physically.
You had to cut weight multiple times. The first weight cut when you fought to get into the house, how did that go? Because you had a good amount of time to make the weight for the first one. How did that go? And the Colin Hart fight, just curious, how did those weight cuts go?
The first weight cut was probably the worst weight cut.
Really?
I tried to stay a little bit heavier, so I would be at a larger size getting into the cage. So I waited till the last 2 days before I cut the weight, and I cut 15 pounds. So I felt flat. I felt flat in the first fight, but I also got the finish early, so I wasn't forced to really dig deep into my gas tank there, into my reserve. As I went to fight Colin, the training regimen that they had us on was just a grueling pace, and no one wants to be the one to complain about what we're doing, but at the same time, it was an unbelievable pace that I don't think everyone there was prepared to face. I knew going in that, we're going to train hard, we're going to be ready to fight every week, but once you're actually put into the situation, it's a different reality.
Now, talk me through it, because when the show airs on TV, we're seeing it every week, but the fights aren't happening every week. You're not there for, there's 15 episodes in a season, you're not there for 15 weeks, you're there for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever it is. Talk me through, how many days off do you have and are back fighting? Like, you had your Colin Hart fight, and then you had the Bubba McDaniel fight, so talk me through the timeline of when you had to make another weight cut so you could fight Bubba McDaniel.
I don't remember exactly the days, but just to lay it out completely, I fought 3 times in I think it was 4.5 weeks. So
Really?
that's a pretty tight schedule to compete at. So within that process, I cut the weight 3 times.
Whoa. And now, going into the show, obviously you said that you knew that was part of the job description, but were there any doubts of you going onto the show, knowing that you had to make this weight? And in the past, it's been tough for you to shed the pounds. So going into this, were you kind of hesitant of being on the show, or was it just an opportunity you had to take?
I knew the opportunity was once in a lifetime, so regardless, I would do it all again the same way. The only thing that I was a little disappointed about is I knew that my body potentially could have problems with the weight cuts because I've had an issue before. So I requested an IV after my first weight cuts, and the producers denied me the IV. So it was a situation where it potentially could have been prevented, but I wasn't able to get access to what I felt that I needed in order to be completely successful.
Any reason particular why they denied you an IV?
You know what? They didn't go into details on it, and I wasn't in a position to complain about it. And I tried to just supplement by taking in more water naturally, just drinking more water throughout the day. And, eventually it just caught up with me anyway.
Now, obviously, you had the issue in the Bubba McDaniel fight, which eventually led to you not being able to answer the bell in the 3rd round. You had your problems with your kidneys. Just curious, Mike Dolce was one of the coaches on Team Sonnen, your team. Did he help you at all during the process? You obviously said that you still felt the problems occurring, but did he maybe prolong how much gas you would be able to be going till you felt the kidney issues starting to come? Like did he play a role in maybe prolonging the process?
Yes, definitely. Mike Dolce did a great job with us with our conditioning, and he was the one who brought it to our awareness about intaking more water due to the fact that we were in the desert, and to make sure that we were very hydrated. So I think that was the way that I was able to get through the fights the way that I did.
Right.
I wasn't hurt badly. I wasn't knocked out, and I was still able to defend myself.
Now, I'm sure you've seen the show. There's been many seasons, so I'm sure you knew what you were getting into before you were actually on the show. But was there anything, being in the house and actually living what you had seen on TV for so many years, was there anything that surprised you about being in the Ultimate Fighter show and the Ultimate Fighter house?
Just the intense training regimen. We're training twice a day. Your body doesn't have time to heal from the last fight. There were some guys who took fights after they had went through a war. So just to be actually in that situation and really see what all the fighters were going through, including myself. And I wasn't the only one that had trouble cutting the weight. There were other guys who were just killing themselves just to even make weight. So realistically, I don't think that 100% everyone there wasn't at their best in all of their fights. So although certain people won and did great jobs, I think on the matchups, depending on if each fighter just had a full camp and fought, may have been different.
Just curious, I like Chael Sonnen. I think he did a great job as a coach. I'm not insinuating that, had you been on Team Jones, you would have won the whole show. But have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about, what life would have been like had you been on Team Jones?
You know what? Initially, I was against being with Team Sonnen due to him having the issues with Black House and a lot of the guys that I trained with there. But once I was pushed into the situation, Chael was an amazing coach. You know, he was very supportive of everything that we went through. He was very hands-on as far as our training and instructing us. And I was really impressed with how genuine he came off and how much he was there for each individual athlete at every part of our journey there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you were going through the process of the show, obviously editing and all that stuff, anyone can come off any which way. It depends on how they're edited. They can come off as the greatest guy in the world, or they can come off as the meanest, most obnoxious, whatever you want to call it, worst guy in the world. The editing wise, do you think you were portrayed good? Were you happy with how you came off on TV?
I was disappointed with my own personal performance, and I was also disappointed that they didn't go into more detail as far as the medical issue that I had, because they didn't really show you guys that I was hospitalized after the fight with Bubba McDaniel. So, you know, I think that people were kind of left with this sense of that I just quit, and then they didn't really follow up with giving the real facts of my situation and the medical issue that I experienced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, whether they were on Team Sonnen or Team Jones, who from the show do you keep in contact with now?
I still keep in contact with Kelvin Gastelum.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I train with Uriah Hall sometimes. I'm pretty good contact with Gilbert Smith. Mm-hmm. You know, a couple other guys, and you know, I try to at least reach out through social networks with everyone. And you know, I think that we all went through something together, and we all kind of, you know, stick close together. And every time they fight, I make sure that I watch, and I'm rooting them all on.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Now, going forward, you had a fight in the finale against Josh Saman. You lost that fight by second round TKO. What went wrong for you in that one?
I haven't been able to see the fight, but I had a submission early in the fight. I had a triangle choke, and I tried to transition it to an arm lock, and Josh he was very tough, and he was determined not to quit and not to give up in the fight. And I honestly can't tell you how he escaped my finish. So even sometimes now today, I replay the moment where he escaped, and I kind of vision my life had I finished there, or looking at the road that I went down because I didn't finish him. So it's one of those things where it was like a moment in time where I had a crossroad, and sometimes you sit back and you look at what could have been. You know, right before the fights, Dana White's in the back of the locker room, and he tells us all. He says, you know, straight up, fellas, the UFC doesn't have room on the roster for everyone. So if you don't win this fight tonight, you're not going to be in the UFC. Point blank, you know, cut and dry, here's your opportunity. So, you know, sometimes I look back and I say, wow, man, I was that close to being where I want to be at that moment. But now, hindsight looking back, I'm glad that I'm with RFA. I'm glad that I'm able to build up a little bit more experience, because now I'll be able to go back to UFC much more prepared and much more confident and in a position to make a real run towards a title shot eventually.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, one more thing about The Ultimate Fighter. Well, it's not really about The Ultimate Fighter. It's about the whole experience, basically. Are you more motivated now to get back there because you've had that little taste? You went through The Ultimate Fighter, and then you had the fight with Josh Saman. You were able to be in the big lights and be on TV and everything like that. But are you more motivated now to get back there because you were once there than you were, you know, coming up and trying to make it there originally?
Yes, I'm more motivated than ever, you know, especially to go back out there and prove myself to the fans. You know, I've never been one to make excuses, but at the same time, you want people to know the real you. So I was in a situation where I lost 3 fights in a row. I've never had a losing streak like that, and I've never experienced that. So the amount of hunger and the amount of desire that it put in my heart to perform and to come back and to let everyone know that I'm still here and to not be put on the shelf is really something I can't put into words. The only thing I can do is express it throughout my next challenges and the next opponents that I face.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When you left the show and after the Josh Saman fight and all that stuff, what kind of improvements and what things did you go back to the gym and work on? What were some stuff that you thought about that needed to be corrected so that you can get on a roll here and then get a call back to the UFC?
The biggest thing was having a consulting a physician. Mm-hmm. You know, before the Ultimate Fighter, I didn't have a physician that I worked with regularly that would tell me the things that were going on with my body. I would only go to the doctor if I was sick. So after the Ultimate Fighter and dealing with the things there, I got with a group of physicians that took my blood work and told me what was going on with my body, what supplements I needed to take, and what steps I needed to take to put me back at supreme health. So number one, you know, any athlete who's in a position where they're putting their body at risk should always know what's going on internally and not just how you look. It's more about what's really going on in your blood, and you know, do you have the right minerals, and are you taking the right, you know, supplements and these things, because your health is you know, it far surpasses anything, because eventually you can't fight.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Obviously, Mike Dolce, he was one of your coaches on The Ultimate Fighter. We touched on him a little bit earlier. Have you been in contact with him diet-wise? Have you talked to him at all?
I haven't kept in close contact with Mike. You know, over the social network, I keep an eye on what's going on. But right now, I'm just in the process of working with the guys in my camp and keeping everything Black House oriented.
Mm-hmm. Was there any thought to maybe going up to 205? I mean, it's kind of hard because I believe you're a true middleweight, and so I like you at that weight class. But was there ever any chance that you would move up to light heavyweight?
No way.
Right.
The thing now I'm in a position where I don't cut water weight. Mm-hmm. I do it all through diet and increase of cardio. So now, the day of the weigh-in, I wake up maybe 4 to 5 pounds over, go for a jog, and sweat it out naturally. So I'm not in a position where I'm cutting 10, 15 pounds of water, you know, the day before the event and going in dehydrated. So this puts a lot less stress on my body. And also I'm getting an IV right after I do the whole process. So I've been feeling very, very good after my fights, and I'll stay with this same program.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, working with the physician, was this before the Josh Saman fight or before the Casey Ryan fight?
This was before the Josh Saman fight.
Okay.
So what happened was I went in and I saw the physician, and they took my blood work, and they told me that I had some things going on. And from there, they really didn't want to clear me for the fight, mm-hmm. but they knew that, you know, this was a big opportunity for me. So they cleared me in order to fight, and I went in and I did the best that I could. I felt like I trained very hard and everything felt good, but when it came time to dig deep, I felt like my reserve just wasn't there. But after that fight, I continued with the physicians, and I think it took time for everything to get back to normal with my system.
Mm-hmm. Prior to the Josh Saman fight, you had 7 fights, you know, actual fights, and then you had the exhibition bouts on The Ultimate Fighter, so 10 fights in total. During that 10-fight stretch, were any of the weight cuts easy?
I never had a tough time making weight, but most of my fights ended fairly early, mm-hmm. so I wasn't in a position to have to really dig in my reserve and to really test my cardio and test my conditioning. So I think that that was a big thing of not knowing how much I could exert before having an issue. In 2010, I fought Matt Lindland, right, in a main event in Portland, Oregon, and that was the first time I experienced what they call renal failure, mm-hmm. which is when the kidneys basically shut down, and mm-hmm. and that's the issue that they told me could come up again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, last time out at RFA 9, back in August of last year, you defeated Casey Ryan by unanimous decision. Were you happy with your performance in the fight? Obviously, in that fight, you had to dig into your reserves, and you passed with flying colors. You were able to defeat him in 3 rounds and won every scorecard. So, were you happy with what you had done in that fight?
I was very happy. I felt that I shut him down. Casey was a guy who came in from the Alliance camp. He was undefeated. He was a tall, good opponent for me to face, and I was able to get through him, and also I was able to go through the duration of the bout. So it told me that the things that I had done were putting me on the right path to making sure that I was healthy enough to compete. After losing 3 fights in a row, sometimes the doubt in your ability to go out there and perform at 100%, you start to question yourself. Mm-hmm. So after going through that Casey fight and finishing all 3 rounds and really pushing throughout the whole bout, I knew that physically I could do this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That event was an outdoor event, and midway through the night, the canvas, because of the humidity, it became very slick. I don't know exactly what kind of canvas they were using, but I don't believe it was the traditional one that we're accustomed to. Were you having problems with footing in that fight?
Yes, I had a lot of trouble. I knew once we inspected the mat in the beginning that would be a potential issue. But once I got out there and I started trying to throw my punches, I could really feel that I wasn't grounded. Mm-hmm. And as I got Casey to the ground and I tried to increase the pressure to be able to advance my positions, I could feel that he was easily escaping and easily sliding away, which made me have to work twice as hard in the fight. So it played an issue. But I think that everyone handled it well, and I think that the fights were still exciting.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Obviously, your goal is to make it back to the UFC, and you've said it in this interview, and obviously your actions have led to that because you signed with RFA. They've made it clear that they want to be the AAA team to the UFC. They're using the Octagon. Ed Soares is running it. He's got a great relationship with the UFC. Just curious, how many fights do you have on your deal with RFA?
I've signed for a total of 3 fights. I still have 2 more on the contract, including this one with Mendez. So, right now I'm just focusing on getting Mendez out of the way, and then we'll just keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Just curious, is Ed Soares your manager?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's someone else that I'm thinking of, but wasn't Ed Soares running Samurai Pro at one point in time?
I believe that Ed had a hand in the project, but he was not the main, promoter for that event.
Oh, okay. And with Ed Soares running a fight show and being your manager, if you weren't in the UFC, was it basically a no-brainer that you would be with RFA?
Well, as far as managing me right now, George is the one who handles the managing for the RFA fighters. Mm-hmm. But they're partners, so Ed kind of isn't hands-on as far as managing me with RFA.
Okay.
But, it was a good idea for me to go to the RFA after the show.
Mm-hmm. Was it more so a good idea because of the business plan that Ed's laid out, because he wants to find untapped talent and get them to the UFC, or the guys who once were there, get them back there? Was it more his business plan or just the relationship you have with him, which made sense for you to be there?
I think it was more about just bringing the best guys into RFA and bringing the best talent around that were unsigned. And I think myself being someone who had publicity coming from the Ultimate Fighter, to put me in that event and to try to get me back there would be, kind of the step to go. So I believe myself to be one of the most talented, unsigned UFC fighters out here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, some guys who have gone through the Ultimate Fighter show say that if they're not in the UFC, they can't really cash in on the publicity they got from being on the show. Some guys say they can, some guys say they can't. What do you say? Have you been able to, cash in on that exposure you've gotten? Have you gotten more fans? Have you gotten more recognition or anything like that?
I believe that there's more recognition as far as, people knowing me and building my brand up more. And also the fact that RFA has a televised event is huge. Mm-hmm. A lot of the underground, a lot of the smaller organizations don't have that outreach where they can reach the general public. RFA is on the cable, and it reaches out to a lot of homes in the United States. So there's a big opportunity there for me to keep the exposure rolling and keep that general interest in the Kevin Casey brand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, coming up on January 24th, you're going to be taking on Eddie Mendez at RFA 12. How much do you know about him?
I don't know too much much about Eddie. I know that Eddie is a strong fighter. He's out of Sun Valley, but I know his record's 7-2. I haven't been able to find any real footage on Mendez, but at the same time, my concern is just making sure that my camp was run correctly and that I feel healthy and that there are no checks that need to be marked on my part. So I'm not really concerned with Mendez. I'm just concerned with going in there, imposing my will, and good luck for him trying to stop me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, this fight is going to be taking place at the Shrine Auditorium. It's a very famous venue. I mean, so many great award shows have been there, Academy Awards, Grammys, you name it, it's been there. It's the place where Michael Jackson, his hair caught on fire or something when he was filming a commercial. You're a guy who's really a performer. You have a rap career and you also do the fighting. Does it mean anything to you to be fighting at this venue?
Anytime I can fight in Los Angeles is huge to me. And also to be fighting at the Shrine also is something that's big for me. So I'm very excited to be a part of this event specifically, and also just to be in the RFA family. I really feel that they're giving athletes like myself who are trying to get back to the next level a true opportunity to go out there and showcase and earn our way back to the big show. I think I think RFA has had 10 fighters go to the UFC, and some guys, I believe, go back to the UFC. So I know I'm in the right place, and I'm just excited to go out there and perform, and to do it on this stage is just a blessing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, on January 24th, what kind of crowd can we expect? How many people, friends, family, how many people are you expecting to be in the crowd cheering for you? I think you're hoping that the entire crowd will be cheering for you, but personally, who have you invited?
You know what? There's so many people connected. I won't be the only Black House fighter on the card, so I think that there will be a few guys there, and we're all a big family. So the energy, as far as my support and as far as the support for Black House, will be tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, you fought for Strikeforce in the past. You fought, obviously, on the Ultimate Fighter and then in the UFC. But way back when, your pro debut, you fought Ikehisa Minowa, a.k.a. Minowa Man. You fought him in your pro debut. I'm just curious, how did that fight all come together? Because he had over 70 fights at the time, and you were making your pro debut. How did that fight come together? I'm curious.
I actually was a training partner for Radich Gracie, who had fought, I think, a Japanese fighter by the name of Shibata. And after Radich won that event, they wanted him to fight Minowa Man. And Radich received an injury during training camp. So 3 weeks prior to the event, Ed Soares came up with the idea to have me go in there and fight Minowa. So at the time, I wasn't in the best shape. I wasn't really prepared for the opportunity, but there was no reason for me not to fight him. I couldn't really pass up the opportunity. So I had my people negotiate a deal, and I had Hicks and Gracie in my corner, and I went to Japan. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I wasn't really ready for the fight, but I thought that I gave a good performance in the fight. Mm-hmm. And I think that having Hickson in my corner was really the deciding factor in them sanctioning the fight there.
Right. If that fight was scheduled in the United States, no commission anywhere would have sanctioned that, so that was going to be my next question. But you had that fight, you had the Matt Linden fight, you fought Strikeforce, UFC. Now with RFA, are you happy with the way your career has gone? Are you happy with the pace in which your career has gone?
To be honest with you, if I look at my whole career, where I'm at today, I would say that I'm not disappointed, but at the same time, I wish that I would have gotten a lot more experience earlier on. Mm-hmm. I never fought an amateur career, and I never gained that ring experience. So a lot of my fights up until now have been me collecting experience. So I'm finally at a point now today where I'm experienced and a true professional going on my 12th fight.
Mm-hmm. Just curious, you've had some years in your career. Now, obviously, you were slowed down a little bit because you had that stint on The Ultimate Fighter, but in 2012, 2011, 2010, and 2009, and of course, the year you made your debut, 2007, you only fought once in each of those years. Just curious, why weren't you fighting actively? You know, was it because guys didn't want to fight you because of the gym you come from? Was it injuries? You know, what exactly led to not being very active?
I think I got spoiled. You know, going straight into my pro debut in Japan and making a good amount of money and being a part of that K1, I was expecting them to have me back. So I kept training. I got on the wheel, and I was expecting them to be calling the phone. We kept shooting out, shooting at, calls to their people and trying to get bites on that. So I wanted to get back into a bigger organization, but at the same time, I didn't have the experience. And then as I started to look around on the smaller circuit, it began to be difficult to get fights. You know, guys weren't taking fights. So finally, people started to fight me, and then I got offered, I got a deal with Strikeforce.
Right.
And originally I signed for 5 fights with Strikeforce. I won the first fight, and then I lost the second fight to Matt Lilland. And then around that time is when Strikeforce sold their company to Zuffa. So I was in a position where I was in limbo where they weren't giving me fights, but at the time I was locked into a contract where I couldn't go and fight anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So that went on for a year. Mm-hmm. And then once I was released from the contract, then I started to fight again and actively look for events. But, there's never been a line of guys out there ready to fight me.
Right. Just curious, how old are you?
I'm 32.
Just curious, you mentioned that you're gaining experience with these fights, even though you fought in big shows. Now you're collecting experience 9 fights into it, rather than with an amateur career and all this stuff, or 10 fights that it'll be when you fight on January 24th. But potential-wise, how high do you think your ceiling is, and also how much room is there? How much have you already tapped into your potential?
I think that I've just became a 100% complete fighter. I've been working my striking for the last 3 or 4 years extensively, and my ground game has always been
right.
one of the best around. Mm-hmm. So now it's really it'll really pose a big problem for my opponents to have to look at how to face me, because now they're dealing with the striking aspect as well as the dangerous ground attack. So I think from here, it's just the sky is the limit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Before I let you go, some non-fighting things I wanted to ask you about. The first thing is the nonprofit organization run by your brother, Keith Casey, Champ. Are you still involved in that, and is he still running that?
At this point, Champ isn't active, but it's something that's always close to my heart, and something I will try to get going in the near future. But at this point, it's on hold.
Oh, okay. And Spencer Pratt, are you still friends with him? Do you still hang out with him?
Yes, I consider Spencer a friend. He's also one of my students, mm-hmm. and I see him a few times a week, and we're good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, here's a question for you: the Hills, real or fake?
Trick question, right? No, man. The Hills was a show that they taped, and they shot scenes multiple times, and I was there and witnessed times where they changed lines, and so I would hate for people to watch a television show of any kind and take it all to be factual.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, I wasn't a fan of the show, but I did watch the show from time to time. I did enjoy it. Did you ever make an appearance on camera in that show?
I was there at a filming, but it was never aired, so I would have to say no. Oh, because I was thinking back, and I don't remember, but since you trained Spencer Pratt, I thought that maybe they would have showed him at the gym once, and maybe you would have made an appearance, but I wasn't sure, so I had to ask. Last question: best looking woman on the Hills? Wow, you're trying to get a married man in?
I wanted to keep up with the theme we were going.
No comment. I didn't watch the show enough to give you a statement on that.
Oh, I see. And if you're ever in contact with Stephanie Pratt, tell her to give me a call. You got my number.
Will do. Will do.
Sounds good. Kevin, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Yeah, shout out to Breakpoint, my jiu-jitsu gear sponsor. Also, check me out on the Twitter, Kevin K.O. Casey, Facebook, Kevin K.O. Casey. And, just for the general fans, get ready for 2014. King is back in full effect. I'm ready.
Kevin, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck January 24th at RFA 12 against Eddie Mendez.
Thank you.